Greetings, all you Jackson Jennets out there, and thank you for tuning into your daily dose of donkey with Ginger. It's your boy, the Viking Donkey, coming to you to talk Steelers football once again. We'll be talking about roster, shakeup, how the 53-man broke out. If I sound a little nasally, I'm sorry, getting over just a cold. Don't worry, nothing crazy, just the common cold over here. But this week happened. Down happened. Some crazy things happened at the beginning, like originally keeping 8 defensive linemen. That was weird. The original 53-man roster, you're like, clearly there's some moves coming, and they happen. So we find out Zach Banner, going to miss at least 3 weeks because he's hurt. Stephen Tuitt, going to miss at least 3 weeks because he's hurt and dealing with the loss of a brother. And we find out Anthony McFarland got hurt, and he's going to miss at least 3 weeks as all of them got put on injured reserves. Not a good sign. Losing 2 starters and probably the top backup running back there. That could hurt a little bit. But we'll see how that works out going forward. We'll see how things are added. And the Steelers did some clever things. Made sure the guys they released that they wanted to come back were veterans so that they couldn't be put on waivers and claimed by other teams. Really smart move there. That's how we were able to get guys right back signed without risking losing them, like B.J. Finney, Rashad Coward, and Arthur Malott. Because if they were the younger players on the roster, you put them out there, they can get claimed off waivers before you can sign them back. And as you know, for a player to get put on IR, they have to be on the original 53-man roster for a day. So it made sense, some of the moves, able to get back some depth, which is good, because if you looked at the way we first made out that roster without Coward, without Finney, there was about 0 offensive line depth on the interior. Also, some interesting things can be found on this first Steelers original depth chart. We'll go over the players that made it first, I guess, and then I will go into the surprises to me on the depth chart, because there are some where I'm like, oh, that's a thing that really happened. But before we get into that, another move was made by the Pittsburgh Steelers. Let's be honest, maybe the secondary was looking a little scary. A lot of those guys didn't show much in the preseason. And I have to say, it seemed like the Steelers must have felt the same way, as they trade a 2023 5th-round draft pick, I believe, to the Seahawks to get Ahkello Witherspoon, who's a guy who played for San Francisco, signed a contract for about $4 million maybe total, somewhere around there, something like that, to be a slot corner, maybe an outside corner. Has a lot of starting experience, really graded out poorly his first few years, but last year had his best graded season, looked pretty good by PFF metrics, looks like he could be a step-in play guy, not a top-tier guy, but a guy who can fill in and can provide at least NFL caliber play. So they get Ahkello Witherspoon, and that leads to the first roster cut, which is now that Tuitt's on the injured reserve, we're down to 7 defensive linemen, but Henry Mondu gets the axe, and we're down to 6 defensive linemen. But I like the move. Little guy who could play in there, could play both ways. Not a change the world type of guy, but definitely shows that depth was a need there, and depth is addressed there. Makes the team a little bit stronger today than it was before he was traded for. So if we want to get into who made that original Steelers roster, let's go. Obviously quarterbacks, Ben, Mason, Haskins. Easy. I believe Josh Dobbs made it to the IR too, so we'll actually keep him 4. You got running backs, Najee Harris, Benny Snell, Kalen Ballage. This is the group that has me a little worried more than any other. And it is purely because Benny Snell, Kalen Ballage, both a little banged up in the preseason. That leaves only Najee Harris, who hasn't been banged up. That's a little scary, seeing as how, well, I guess you could say you could pick someone up and go. But you get to elevate someone from the practice squad, so maybe the fact that Jalen Samuels made it at the practice squad is the 4th running back depth there for now. So guess it's not something to too much worry about, as you do have the ability to have a 4th active, but that one was weird to me. Derek Watt went in the fullback job. Did anyone expect anything different? I mean, you can't really be making TJ mad right now when you're trying to get him to sign a contract, so clearly you're going to keep Derek Watt there at fullback. Tight ends, no surprise, Ebron, Firemoose, Gentry. Don't know why I'm having a hard time with his name. Just typical 3 you expect the Steelers to carry. You go out the 5 wide receivers, same as last year. You have Juju, you have Claypool, you have Ray McLeod, James Washington, Deontay Johnson. Now we get to the fun part of the offense, which is the offensive line. Originally, Banner was on it, gets put on IR. We bring back Coward and Finney to be interior depth, backing up Trey Turner and Dotson at the guards. You have a core for Dan Moore Jr. and Joe Haig as the tackles. Who's going to start at right tackle is anyone's question. It seems like it might be a core for actually moving to right tackle and Dan Moore Jr. starting at left tackle. And please no, that guy can't move, and I don't want Ben getting cracked in his blind side this early in the year. So that makes me more nervous than I'd like to admit, and I hope that is not the guy who is going to be starting opposite anyone, at least not right now. Hopefully Haig gets it, or that we sign someone that can take it up. But the interesting thing to me is everyone's talking about how Kendrick Green's going to be great. He's going to start from day one. Original Steelers depth chart, your starting center is J.C. Hassenauer. Call me nervous, because even if they plan on starting Kendrick Green, and this was just a let's light a fire under his butt, the fact that he isn't listed above Hassenauer, oh boy. Anyone who watched Hassenauer play last year, watched him play this preseason, that's not something you want to see. I know Green had some trouble snapping the ball, but Hassenauer has trouble snapping the ball. Apparently that's a thing with Steelers centers, is you have to have trouble snapping the ball recently. That, to me, though, was the biggest surprise I saw out there, was the big draft pick, the guy who they were all hyping up that they were beyond happy to get because he was the best one they had seen out there, isn't even listed as the starter. Oh, man. That is what it is. But that's the offense for you. No real surprises. Personnel groups ended up being what you expected them to be in terms of numbers of players. Originally, not quite what you expected to see, as there is no interior offensive lineman kept, but as you saw, that changed with the smart maneuvering of making sure the veterans were the ones you release because they're the ones you can bring back the easiest, and you make sure all the young kids that you want to keep on the roster. Otherwise, it probably would have been Dan Moore or Haig that would have been put out there, but that's not to be the case. So let's get to the defense. Like I said before, for some reason we kept 8 defensive linemen originally. We figured out what that was about, Tuitt getting hurt, and then Mondu has moved later when we brought in another cornerback. On the third injured person, the guy we originally brought back was Arthur Mallett, a cornerback. We'll talk about him later. But let's start with the defensive line. Obviously, Hayward, Alu made the team. Tuitt makes the teams on IR. Isaiah Buggs, Chris Wormley, probably the top 2 backups right now, you'd say. Then you have Loudermilk and Carlos Davis, because there's no doubt the Steelers were going to keep Loudermilk. They didn't trade up to get this guy just to let him go, even if he looked terrible through college film and through preseason. Really looked bad when he went against anyone who was worth a darn, let's be honest. But not going to let him go. I hope he develops. I mean, he does have the body frame, the size to be everything you want, but the play leaves a lot to like. Wormley looked good this preseason. I thought Buggs looked good this preseason, so hopefully whoever has to step up for Tuitt does a good job. Whoever it ends up being, I really think Wormley's going to get shot 1, but I would not be surprised if before week 3 it's Buggs taking over that role as primary fill-in for Stephen Tuitt, who's coming off the greatest year we've seen him have. We have TJ Watt, and I believe he's still dealing with a contract thing, so let's hurry up and get that done as we're moving outside linebacker now, obviously. Alex Highsmith going to be the starters. They're going to be backed up by Ingram, and Jameer Jones makes the team. Had a really good preseason. I guess the Steelers want to keep him on to take a look. I heard a lot of the players who made it, especially at inside linebacker, which was confusing because we kept, 6 of them, which we'll talk about next. Well, a lot of that was due to special teams play, but still, I can't understand keeping 6, only keeping 4 outside linebackers. I would have preferred to keep 1 more outside linebacker here. I would have liked to see Quincy Roche stay on the team, but I believe he got claimed by the Giants again, because for some reason every time we let a pass rusher go who has a decent preseason, he goes to the Giants. It happened with Tazir Skipper a few years ago. But outside linebackers, I think you're 1 short here, but I like the 4 they kept. I would have preferred a 5th in Roche, and I would have definitely kept him over the 6th inside linebacker, which was Ulysses Gilbert, UG3. I mean, Gilbert III looked terrible this preseason. He couldn't cover anything, but he makes the team. Obviously, you have Devin Bush, Joe Sherbert to be the starter, Spillane the top backup. Then you have Buddy Johnson, who looked pretty good on special teams and looked to have a little more explosiveness than I thought he did than I thought he would in the preseason. So I like seeing him make the team. I think he'll do good on special teams, add a little something there. And you have Marcus Allen making the team, even though he was hurt for a little bit. I mean, he looks okay in coverage. He struggles tackling. But he's the type of guy who's always hurt. That's why I don't like wasting a roster spot on him. He is an always hurt guy. I think between him and Gilbert, one of them needed to be let go to keep another outside linebacker. But Steelers have their reasons. For some reason, one of those guys must be the special teams ace, although I've never seen either one of them step up to be a special teams ace. But hey, it is what it is. We're here. There's nothing to be really crazy about. Then we can move on to cornerback. We have the aforementioned Witherspoon, who we just traded for to go along with Joe Hayden, Cam Sutton, James Pierre, Justin Lane, and Arthur Malat, who got brought back. Solid group, not spectacular. A lot of low-end ceiling, high-end floor play here. I don't know how that's going to play out for the Steelers. I hope it works out really well. Hopefully no lost step by Hayden, no misstep from Sutton moving inside to out. Hopefully Pierre or Lane, whoever steps up, or Witherspoon or Malat, whoever steps up to get the nickel roll or move to the outside roll if the nickel roll decides to go to Sutton, can really get it done. A little nervous about this group, but all in all, not a group I'm sad to see out there. I think it's a pretty talented group at corner. I don't think it's as talented as last year, but it's a good group the Steelers were able to form, were able to make, and save some money with. And then we get to safeties, and you have Minkah Fitzpatrick, Terrell Edmonds, obviously, good players. Killebrew, kind of fill-in everywhere backup guy, is going to get exposed if he has to start, so let's hope that doesn't happen. And then Trey Norwood makes the team. I mean, the Steelers fell in love with him, so you knew he was going to make the team, whether or not the play deserved it. First preseason game was good. Since then, looked terrible. Maybe he gets to slide down and play a little bit in the slot, be a makeshift inside linebacker for a little bit, like I like to call him the Swiss cheese, Swiss Army knife. I hope this is a position the Steelers can find a way to upgrade through practice squad additions, waiver wire claims, as I feel the safety position outside of the two starters is going to be a weakness of this team, and that's not something this is not a team that can afford to have a weakness, especially if an injury happens. So I'd like to see him try to improve here. This is one of the weaker spots I felt on the team. And then we'll get to special teams, and I guess it was time for turnover, as not only do the Steelers replace the punter by keeping Presley Harvin III, gotta love a fat punter. Still considering if I'm getting that jersey or not, but gotta love a fat punter. Beat out Jordan Berry. And you know what? He pushed Jordan, and Jordan Berry pushed back. Jordan Berry punted really good this preseason. So that was good to see that was an actual competition up there. I love to see that. But Canada loses his job as well as Christian Kuntz, little school linebacker long snapper man, gets to make the team. So 2/3 of the kicking unit will be new with Kuntz, Harvin III, but of course, the solid Chris Boswell. Let's just keep that one season. One season was a blip. Every other season's good. Of course, Boswell makes the team. So there you have it. The Steelers' first 53-man roster. Will we see changes before the season? Very possibly. I mean, we don't have a game this week, so you got another week. Maybe changes happen, injuries happen, who knows. But all in all, a solid roster put out there in terms of starting quality. Depth is the biggest concern on this roster. To me, I hate the depth at outside linebacker. I hate the lack of depth of safety, offensive line, and with injuries already in the offensive line, that's scary. Running back,
Nice work.
I don't know what to say. You got,
Now scram.
hopefully one of those guys steps up. Hopefully they can stay healthy. It's a little bit scary to me the way the depth is breaking down on this team, but all in all, a solid roster put out there, ready to go week 1 at Buffalo. These guys need to step up. If Kendrick Green is going to win that starting job, he needs to step up because J.C. Hassenauer is not the answer. Anyone who's watched it can tell you that. You watch his tape, he's not the answer. Maybe I'm wrong, and maybe he turns into something super great, and I certainly hope that is the case. You just can't see it. It doesn't show. He's never shown it, but that is the roster. That's what we're rolling with. Next week, we'll get into a bigger breakdown of position groups versus Buffalo. Hopefully, Gingy's back, so you don't have to deal with just me breaking down it. And we'll see what happens. Season's about to start. It's anything can happen. It's any given Sunday. It's that time of year. You don't believe it's any given Sunday? I went out. I watched some college football this weekend. There were some crazy games going on out there. Virginia Tech taking it to North Carolina. UCLA rolling up on LSU. Clemson forgetting how to play offense. And honestly, Georgia didn't play offense either. They score a defensive touchdown. That's the only thing they get. How about, shout out to my wife's school, Montana beating number 20 Washington at Washington. You know it can happen in college football. You know it can happen in pro football. Any given Sunday, anything can happen. These boys need to get ready. These boys need to show up next week, and I hope they do. With that, I'll let you know. You can reach me at Viking_Donkey on Twitch and Twitter. Your daily dose of Donkey with Ginger on the YouTube. Leave us a comment. Leave us a like. Leave us a follow. You can hit me up on an email that's linked there. You can go ahead and reach me at Viking Donkey on Xbox. No space, no nothing, just Viking Donkey on Xbox. I'd love to hear from anybody, topics they want to hear about. If they want to come and be part of the show, that's always welcome too. And I had to go to shout-outs. This shout-out, it has to go to a guy who I didn't have too much knowledge of because I didn't listen to Steelers football games. I was a little kid when he played for the Steelers. At the end of when he played for the Steelers, I was a little kid. That's Tunch Ilkin. When I moved to Alaska, I had to listen to some of the games, man, and I loved listening to him on the radio. Sad to hear he passed away. Fought the battle he could against Lou Gehrig's disease, and that has to be my shout-out. Steeler legend, voice of the Steelers for a while. Maybe not the Myron Cope level voice of the Steelers, but a guy I love to listen to. So my shout-outs to Tunch. And, hey, you know what, Steeler Nation? Here it is for Tunch. Wave them if you got them, baby. Wave them if you got them.